What's up, everybody? My name is Dr. Kwachi, also known as Dr. K. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So the purpose of this YouTube channel is to put you guys on, all right? To put you guys on when it comes to health and wellness, right? Over the last few years, based on my experiences with working with patients in clinic and personal training, there have been so many questions and topics and issues that people have asked me, and I've been able to help people make these changes. But once I help somebody else, the same question comes up again and again with other people. And for me, I enjoy helping people in the doctor's office, right? But I believe in order for me to have more impact, I need to get the word out, the good news out to as many people as possible, right? So that's why I'm here, is just to spread the good news when it comes to health and wellness, to put you guys on, to make sure that you guys are aware of all the things that can maximize and optimize your life physically and mentally. All right. So we'll be talking about a lot of different things. Right. We'll talk about nutrition. We'll talk about mental health. We'll talk about self-care. We'll talk about social relationships. We'll talk about strategies that you guys can utilize to benefit yourselves and people you love and care about around you. We'll spend time talking about the don'ts of doing certain things. We'll talk about things that you can do if you're maybe traveling. We'll talk about every and anything, right? Because at the end of the day, for me, the goal is to have all of us having optimal quality of life, having a great quality of life where we're living life independently when we're in our older years, not having to rely on other people. And I believe that, and I've seen it, that no matter what age you are in the decade of your life, you have the ability, if you make certain changes or lifestyle adjustments in your life, you have the opportunity to be as functional as possible, right? Without having to rely on anybody until the day you leave this earth, right? Whether you're 40 years old, 50 years old, or 90 years old, okay? So my mission is just to make sure that, myself included, that I'm making steps every day to get to that point where no part of my life coming up, no matter what age I'm at, will I have to rely on other people to help me go to the bathroom, right? Or I want to be able to pick up my grandchildren with ease when I'm 80 years old, right? Or great grandchildren, whatever it is at the time, right? I want to be able to hold luggages and suitcases when I'm 80 and walk swiftly up the stairs, right? And all these things can happen if all of us collectively make certain choices every day, no matter what stage we are in our lives, no matter what decade of life we're living in, okay? The other thing too is that there's so many things that are often overlooked that if we just knew about, it can improve our quality of life, right? Oftentimes we make decisions because we just are unaware. So the purpose of the purpose of this YouTube channel is just to make sure you're aware. Now, if the information that you get and you don't utilize it to your advantage, then that's on you. But as long as you know, and as long as you are aware, then we all good. All right. So that's the key, is just making sure that you guys have a good understanding that, oftentimes we don't have the access just to be aware of what can be helping us to improve our quality of life. Right. Now, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself briefly before we start talking about the world of health and wellness, right? So I'm a family physician. Been practicing for at least 5 years now. I was originally trained as a psychiatrist, and I decided to switch routes because I personally felt that I just wanted to do a little bit more personally when it came to medicine, right? There is a need for mental health care, right? But for me, I wanted to approach mentally. I wanted to have an approach physically. I wanted to have an approach holistically, right? And I personally felt limited when I was a psychiatrist because I felt that I wasn't able to utilize what I've learned and the skills I developed on a physical aspect of our health and wellness. And I personally believe your physical is as important as your mental, health, and they're both interconnected. All right. So one is not superior over the other. And being a family practice has given me the ability to treat my patients holistically, right? And the things I've utilized in clinic with my patients, I've incorporated that when I've personal trained people as well, right? So it's been a joy to see people's life change based on the recommendations I've made, right? By doing things naturally and addressing the root of what's going on. And that's one thing that's going to be a big emphasis with me, is that I'm very focused on addressing the root of what's going on, right? Why do you have high blood pressure? Why do you have high blood sugar? Why are you not getting good sleep at night? Why do you have a headache, right? So these things, there are so many different avenues or ways that it could have been contributing to that, right? And it's up to me. It's almost like a detective to figure out, figure out why is this happening in the first place. And once we figure out why it's happening, we prevent it from happening again in the future, right? Now, if we don't know why it's happening and we just give you some meds, some medications, hey, take this, but we're not really addressing the root, then what's the point, right? You're just gonna keep coming back, coming back, not understanding what's really going on with your body, and it's not really addressing the root of why it happened in the first place, right? So that's another thing to keep in mind, is that no matter what's going on in your body, really, really try your best to figure out, why is this happening to me? Like, what is my body trying to tell me, right? That's the first question, because anything that's happening to our body, whatever is manifesting, whatever feelings we're having, whatever symptoms we're having, is our body communicating with us, telling us, hey, like, hey, warning, something is not right. So this is the response I'm letting you know. When that happens, you really need to figure out, why did this happen in the first place? All right, so that's key, and all that ties into mindfulness about our bodies. Okay. Now, I would say when it comes to our lifestyle, right? It's always important to think holistically. As I mentioned, physically is important. Your mental health is important, right? Your relationships with people are important. Studies have shown that people who tend to have good relationships, strong knit relationships, tend to live longer, right? You want to make sure that you're getting good sleep at night, at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep, right? You want to make sure that you're hydrated normally, drinking enough fluids, right, throughout the day. You want to minimize processed foods, which we'll be diving into plentifully in future videos, right? You want to stay engaged physically and mentally. What I mean engaged is just moving, right? The body was designed to move. We were designed, right, by our creator to be active, right? So when we're not active or moving, the body's pretty much deteriorating, okay? So I don't know if you guys are familiar of the law of entropy, right? So the law of entropy states that there's disorder, right? Now, if you're not putting things in place, the body's natural inclination, or even just the world in general, the natural inclination is for there to be disorder, right? So you have to be intentional about physical activity, being active, because it's just like the saying, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So that's what the law of entropy states, is that there's a notion to move towards disorder if order is not being intentionally put into place, right? So our body's designed just like that, meaning that if we don't make any action or any intention to be active, to stay fit, to stay healthy as much as we can, that means our body is going to continue to deteriorate slowly. And the way the body works is that we don't notice these things overnight, right? It's a slow process that is going on in our bodies until one day we wake up, and then we wake up with a symptom or issue. By that point, it's not necessarily too late, but it's so far gone from when it first started happening. All right, so always remember that we have to make daily steps and be aware that it's really on the actions and choices that we make every day that's going to determine our outcome in the future. Okay. So one thing that I'll mention is that, because I know this is going to be a hot topic that we're definitely going to be talking about, is nutrition, all right? I don't think I mentioned it, but I've been plant-based for almost 7 years, right? Actually, prior to that, I was pescatarian. I did that for 2 years, and I slowly transitioned to to 100% plant-based in 2017. All right. One of the reasons why I transitioned into plant-based is because there was a point in time when I had high blood pressure and my doctor at the time was trying to get me on blood pressure medications. I was like, nah, I'm not having it. I got to figure out a way to avoid blood pressure medications, number one. And number two, I got to figure out a way to treat my body right. Like at that time, I wasn't treating my body right. I wasn't eating the best foods. I wasn't being as active as I should have been, and I was stressing out, right? All those things contribute to inflammation, right? And when life is happening, when life is lifing, oftentimes we just don't really think about what's really going on, but our body be suffering from it, right? Our body really be suffering. And when I realized and I woke up and I was like, oh snap, like I just had a vision. I'm like, I was just thought about my future. At the time I was in like my early to mid 20s, I was like, I just thought like I had a flash of like me in my 50s or 55, 60, just like, you know, saw in the table just sitting with mad blood pressure and medication suffering. I was like, yeah, that can't be me. Like that cannot be me. So I gotta make whatever I gotta do. And on top of that too, I was like, I'm gonna be a doctor. I gotta practice what I preach, right? Who's gonna wanna listen to me if I'm looking crazy, overweight, obese, not taking care of myself, being on medications? It's not gonna happen. And I had to take myself more seriously at that time. And I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna figure it out. So that's what encouraged me to, number one, become more active in the gym and just in general. And then number two, to figure out and let's learn more about food in general and how much, you know, plants are beneficial for our body. Just understanding food in general. And, you know, for me, it's been great. And, you know, one thing that I've learned working with clients and patients is that when it comes to food, there's not one shoe fits all, one size fits all, whatever that quote is, right? I've learned that, for instance, people who've been on paleo diets have had great benefits. People who've been on keto diets have had some great health benefits. People who've been vegan have had some great health benefits, right? So I think there's different ways for us to optimize our health. But I think when it comes to nutrition, despite no matter which avenue you decide to go, right, whichever classification of a diet that you choose to have, the key is making sure that you have enough plants on your plate, right? So you don't have to be a hardcore 100% vegan or 100% plant based, but it's very, very important to make sure that you get plants on your plate, right? You can have your meat, you have your whatever, you can have your animal products during the course of the week, but you got to make sure that you're not neglecting those plants. And the reason why plants are important is because it sounds cliche, but plants are really nature's medicine, and I really, really mean that, right? I've read so many papers and articles about studies that have been done on certain particular plants that are so protective and therapeutic for our bodies, right? It can help reverse conditions in our body, it can help rejuvenate our bodies, it can help promote the release of certain neurotransmitters in our brain like dopamine and serotonin that help us feel good and help us sleep better. There's so many therapeutic benefits from plants that you necessarily may not get from eating an animal product. Why? Because plants, just like we have our own immune system, plants have their own immune system in the sense where they have certain chemicals that protect them from the environment, all right? So you think about a plant that's just sitting in the wilderness, it got to protect itself too, right, from the stresses of the environment. So these plants have certain chemicals, which you call phytochemicals, that protect them. When we ingest that, when we eat a plant and we ingest that, we take that superpower from that plant and we use it to our advantage, right? You necessarily cannot get that from, you can't necessarily get that from an animal product. And I'm not here to bash animal products. I'm not. Like I said, do you, if you want to eat your animal foods, cool. Animal foods are nutritious. If you're eating animal products, I'd highly recommend organic or wild caught. All right? Organic or wild caught would be the way to go if you're gonna be eating animal products. To keep it 100 with you guys, I don't trust the animal products like the meat, chicken. Boy, I don't trust any of the animal products how's like processed here in the U.S. because the U.S. is focused on mass production, right? The U.S. when it comes to the food industry is not really invested in your health, I mean, you really have to understand that, all right? So if you're buying meat in the grocery store for super cheap because you don't want to spend an extra couple of dollars to get the organic, right, or the wild caught, then you're doing yourself a disservice for your body. And I'm just gonna keep that 100 buck with you guys, okay? So keep in mind, all right, you want to focus on organic whole foods. Organic whole foods, plants, whole plants. You want to minimize the processing of that. But when it comes to animal products, organic or whole, you do not want farm raised, right? You do not want anything that doesn't say organic or whole foods. I'm just telling you guys, right? And not to say like, I mean, not to say that even when it says organic or organic or wild caught, that it's actually not, right? Who knows? They could be lying and then selling it and labeling it organic or whole food, but organic or wild caught. But honestly, if I see organic or I see wild caught and it was me that I'm eating some animal products, I'm gonna go with that rather than just buying a cheaper one because it's of less quality. And anything that I want to put in my body got to be of quality. And I want you guys to have that mindset that anything that you're taking from the environment, that you're entering into your body, right? Because your body is something that you are living in, right? That gets you to and from, right? That gives you the ability to walk, gives you the ability to talk, gives you the ability to see, hear, right? All these things that can be taken for granted. If we're not taking things from the environment to nourish ourselves that are not of quality, then how can we expect our body to be optimal, like to be the best it can be, if we're not really thinking about and being mindful of the foods that we're putting into our body? All right, so there's something I want you guys to keep in mind. The key is mindfulness. All right, the key is mindfulness, and I just want you guys to really, really keep that in mind every day with the choices that you guys make. Okay, the foods that you eat, just think about what you're doing and what you're eating before you decide to chomp down. All right. So the key to take home for nutrition is if it's an animal product, you want organic or whole or wild caught. Now your food has to be, like I mentioned previously, it got to be primarily plants. Okay, primarily plants, whole plants. All right. You don't want it to be processed. You don't want your foods to be processed like in packages. Anything that's packaged, you want to make sure that you want to look at the ingredients in the back, and if it look like biochemistry, avoid it. All right, all these natural flavors and fructose corn syrup, all these benzoate, whatever you call them, preservatives, they're not designed for our bodies. These are manufactured, man-made preservatives and all that are used to make these companies money by preserving them on the shelf. They're not designed to nourish our bodies, and they're actually poison for our bodies. Okay, so these are the little things that we'll be spending time trying to debunk, and just to make sure that you guys are aware, because the everyday person is not learning this, right? They don't teach us this in school. They didn't even teach me this in med school. I had to learn this on my own, right? So I just want you guys to be aware. It's going to be a fun journey. I look forward to having these conversations. In the future, I'll likely have open forums, and I really, really appreciate your feedback and comments. If you guys have any questions or topics you would like me to talk about, just throw them my way, and we'll spend some time talking about it as well. And yeah, so thank you for tuning in to my day one, and I look forward to this journey with you guys. Y'all be safe. Peace.